Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Emory Security YouTube channel. My name is Evan Isaac, and today we'll be taking a look at Section 2 of the API Security 2025 CTF. In this section, we'll be looking at some SQL injections. Again, if you didn't watch the previous episode, be sure to watch it before watching this one as we're going synchronously. I have done this challenge before just because I recorded this video once before and unfortunately my audio did not make it through the cut, so I'm now redoing everything. However, this was a fantastic challenge and I'm going to try to walk you through my methodology of what I did, what I stumbled on, and how to go about solving this challenge. So the first one is the search for secrets. And it says you stumbled across a sketchy search API that talks directly to a database, and it's a little too trusting. Beneath the surface lies a hidden flag buried deep in the records of the admin user. Your task: twist the query to your will, inject a little chaos, and reveal the secret the system desperately wants to hide. A perfect intro to SQL injection and a satisfying way to outsmart careless devs. And here we do have a URL, so let's head on over to it. And we see that we have a search user and a username. In the challenge, we did say admin, so we'll stick to admin. And we could see that admin is here with no data. So the first thing that you want to do when it comes to an SQL injection, or you suspect that an SQL injection is in play, is put in a single quote. And what this is going to do is this is going to escape the query, and I'll explain everything in just a second. We can see that there is an error message. So unrecognized token with an admin, and it looks like there are two single quotes. We could try to put in another single quote and see if we get a different response. And it looks like just an empty array. So we could try to do something along the lines of and, let's say 1 is equal to 1. Click send, and we can see that we do get admin here. And if we try to put 2, since it's null or false, it will show back with nothing there. So what exactly is going on here? Well, let's take a look at it together. So we're injecting into a query, and let's assume that the query is select star from users, where username is equal to admin. Let's say admin is what we input into our field. So originally, it's going to look something like this, but if it's not sanitized, what's going to happen is if the user puts in a single quote, this means that we've now escaped it, right? And we could do a lot with this. So because there's a single quote, we can then put something along the lines of and we can make it into a true clause. So if we do something along the lines of 1 equals 1, what this is going to do, and let's just assume that there is a single quote there as well, what this is going to do is it's going to result in a true factor. And whatever is going on within the query, it's always going to be set to true, because something and true is always going to be true. Now that's if, let's say the username is admin. If we try to put username set to Evan, it's not going to work. It's not going to show anything. But because we know that the user exists on the database, it's going to always be true. Now there's also something called the OR clause. The OR clause is going to be the exact same thing as the AND clause, except for it can be one of two things. Number one, it could be the username is set to admin. That could be true, and the query will just execute. Or if 1 equals 1, it'll automatically go to the next step, next query, perform the function, whatever it's doing. So with AND, everything needs to be true. With OR, one of several things needs to be true. So looking at this, because this is set to false, because 1 does not equal 2, it's going to return nothing. And when 1 equals 1, it's going to return something. Just so we're clear on what goes on here. Now, we're going to want to try to retrieve data from this. And the first thing that I like to do is try to see if we can do something like sleep. And essentially what this function is going to do is this is going to make the server wait on the back end. And if it does work, we should see the response in 10 seconds. And it looks like no such function sleep. Okay, so whenever I see an error message, the first thing that comes to mind is just look it up on Google and see what comes up. So let's take on this no such function error and let's throw it into Google and let's see what some folks say. And it looks like it has something to do with SQLite. Just by doing something as basic as spawning an error message or using a function that maybe doesn't exist on the database, we can retrieve that the database server on the backend is going to be SQLite. So with that, we can start to do additional enumeration. Now, because we don't have access to the sleep function, this is not going to be a time-based attack. It could be, let's say, an error-based, but most likely it's not going to be. So we could try something like a union select clause. So we could do union select star, let's say from users, and then we'll just do something like that. And we'll click on send, and we receive this error message. So I don't really know exactly what this means. Selects to the left and right of union do not have the same number of result columns. So I'm assuming it has something to do with the star, if I'm not mistaken. But we need to figure out a way to retrieve all of the different tables. So let's head on back over here, and we'll do SQLite union-based query for tables in database, or something along those lines, and let's see what people come up with. Let's see if we can retrieve some information. Let's take a look at the Stack Overflow. And this person says SQLite does not support dynamic SQL, whatever. Okay, so this query will apparently get all the columns that are common in all tables in the database. So we could just copy this and we can see if this works. So we'll do union select, or maybe we don't even need that, but we could try to send it and it doesn't like the width. So maybe we could just remove that and see if that works. And it looks like it's just not accepting a lot of stuff. Okay, that's fine. So let's head back on over here, and the bulk of what we're going to try to do is let's see if we can just use this select statement. So it's just going to select the tables from the SQLite master. If you don't know much about SQLite, essentially the SQLite master is the main schema, quote unquote, for the database. And we're going to be retrieving the name column here. So let's head back on over to the Hacker Search application and just paste it in and send it on over. So it says that select is not allowed, but luckily for us, union select may be allowed. And it looks like we are getting an error with the table. And because, like I said originally, because we're trying to escape and properly complete the query, what we're going to want to do is remove the single quote at the very end. When we click on send, we can see that we retrieve 3 different tables from the database. We retrieve admin, we retrieve flags, and we retrieve users. So what exactly can we do with this information? Well, we know that we're trying to look for a flag. We could enumerate some of the columns. We'll have to figure out how we can enumerate some of the columns. I wonder if there's a way here. And it looks like this person does have something. So maybe we can try to use this and see if it works. I'm not really sure if it'll work or not, but we could try it. So let's head back on over here. Let's modify this a little bit. So we're going to set tables to flags, and then I guess we'll just leave that to T, and I hope this works. And it doesn't look like it is. Or is it? Let's see. No such column, PTI name. Okay. What if we just put name? No T name. Okay. What about something like name, like that? Okay, we retrieved the admin, but we want to retrieve all the columns. We don't want to retrieve just what we specified. Okay, so let's go back to our original query. Let's see what we can work with. So we know that union select works, so we could do just the basic and see if this works. So we could do flags, since that's the table that we know was working before, and we still retrieve this error message. So because we're looking for a flag, most of the time on CTFs, all you got to do is type in flag and see if maybe that is the column, which it is. So flag SQLi API bypass complete. So we'll take the flag and we'll paste it into the dashboard, and that's the first challenge done. The second challenge is break the gate, which is 100 points. And it's essentially the exact same thing, except unfortunately for them, this API trusts user input way too much, and the mission is we're going to try to get SQL injections to, I guess, hijack the admin session. So let's head on over to break the gate, and we see what we're working with. So we're going to do some basic stuff like admin, and we see that we get an error message, invalid credentials. So when this happens, what you're going to want to do, and remember originally when I said something along the lines of and or clauses, this is the kind of case where we're going to try to do that. So let's see if we could do something like and 1 equals 1, and let's send it, and it looks like it still says invalid credentials. So let's try to copy this on over, log in, and still nothing there. So what we could try to do instead is maybe it needs to be an error message, so we could just change it to 2, and still nothing there. So maybe the credentials are invalid, right? And let's go back to our query that we specified before. So select star from users where username equals admin, and let's just say it's also doing and password is set to admin as well. So again, we have our input set to admin, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to escape, which is what this is doing right here, right? So this is the original single quote, and this is our injected payload right here. So we could try to do the or clause, because let's say this fails and this fails, or 1 equals 1, which is true. That should result in a true factor. So we could head on over here. We can move this to or clauses, and we can click on login, and we see welcome Alice. Well, this is a bit weird because we're trying to log in as the admin, but we're getting a different user response and information. Doesn't really make much sense. So we could try to do, let's say, 1 incorrect and 1 correct. So let's say that the username is invalid, so we'll just set it to 2, and then this would be a valid response because it said something about no password required or something along those lines. So maybe we need this to be true and this to be false. When we click login, it doesn't work, so maybe both of them need to be not true. And when we do that, we retrieve the flag. So flag, who needs passwords when you have SQLi, and we get welcomed as the admin. So we can go back to our dashboard and submit the flag. So that's all for section 2. I hope you did enjoy. The SQL injection vulnerability is one of the most impactful vulnerabilities you can find on an application. Not only is it impactful in the sense that you can retrieve a lot of information from the database, but also you can potentially obtain RCE depending on what configuration the application does have. If it's a Microsoft SQL server, there's a high probability that it's probably misconfigured to where you're using the admin credentials on the database, and with that you can use something called XP command shell, which I'm going to be going into in a later video. But I hope you did enjoy. If you do have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.